consider and act upon the purchase of flock safety license plate reader products and services as detailed in Exhibit A to the Master Services Agreement not to exceed $209,100. Chief Smith.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. How are you?
Oh, well, thank you.
Awesome. So, lots of paperwork tonight. I think I'm going to be here for a minute. Okay, this item, as you know, we have looked at the purchase of these automatic license plate readers. I don't have the agenda item in this mess. There it is. Okay. As you know, the city of Midlothian population, retail, and business environment grows. So does the opportunity for criminal behavior. And I do have some stats here to go over in a minute and talk about the increase in criminal activity we've seen over the last 24 months, and which was one of the reasons why we brought this purchase to your attention. We have, as you know, most of the criminal acts involved used to transport actors committing auto theft, burglary of vehicle, aggravated robbery, homicide, and acts of criminal mischief at city parks, as well as various levels of assault. In many of these cases, a description of the involved vehicle has been provided to witnesses at or near the scene. Midlothian Police Department have explored various technologies available to assist us in identifying and locating vehicles involved in criminal acts. The flock camera system is widely used by adjacent municipalities, including Mansfield, Cedar Hill, Waxahachie, Red Oak, and our own Ellis County Sheriff's Department is in the process of deploying 8 cameras. The cameras located within these and other municipalities and county jurisdictions provide real-time information to officers conducting criminal investigations, as well as notifying officers in local jurisdictions of a vehicle's role if located by the flock camera system. MPD staff are confident by implementing flock system, our ability to detect, react, and solve crime will be greatly enhanced while providing advanced safety for our citizens, retailers, business owners within our jurisdiction. I provided you quite a bit of information, and I think, let me go over, I did have some questions that were posed to me. If I can go over that real quick, maybe they will answer those questions before they're posed by council. This is, if it is approved, and it provides the type of information, and it is as effective as we think it will, this would be the first phase in what could be 2 phases or 3 phases of camera deployment. The first phase is designed to basically cover areas including City Hall, our the new public safety building, our parks, and other areas that we see as high areas of traffic for criminal behavior. As you know, some of those locations we've kept confidential. At this point, there will be a map at some point that will be provided if this is approved, for council's viewing, and as for the public as well. Similar technology, there was a question about tollways. So these cameras would use similar technology in terms of capturing the license plate. Now, the tollway doesn't use it for criminal investigations. They use it to identify registered owners to send a bill. Now, I don't know how long they would keep that. Typically, law enforcement, particularly flock, that work with flock, only hold this information in a encrypted environment for 30 days. And then there is a hard delete. All that information goes away after 30 days, unless it's pulled by an investigator through a follow-up investigation. And that would be a particular license, a particular description that they're using in a criminal investigation. No information, the information is encrypted. It will not be sold. It shall not be shared except for criminal agencies, criminal justice agencies like Mansfield, Waxahachie, Red Oak. There is a list of agencies that includes Grand Prairie, Arlington, Dallas, Fort Worth, Irving, and other agencies that are in the area that are using the system. So anytime that we place a license plate for recognition, or it's been listed in a Amber Alert from our city, if it is captured by one of their agency flock cameras, their users will be notified that that vehicle has now entered their jurisdiction. That's why it's so effective in detecting and catching criminal activity. So the information, that categories that are typically used in this type of technology or categories of investigation include protective orders. They're attached to license registrations. Gangs or gang and suspected terrorists who are wanted for criminal behavior. Stolen vehicles, stolen license plates, missing persons, including information provided by the Missing and Exploiting Children and the FBI. Our alerts including Amber and Silver Alert, Blue Alerts. I think there are 2 or 3 other type of alerts as well, but they are attached to not only the license plate, but the description of the vehicle. And we'll talk about that in a second. Registered sex offender information. If one of these vehicles that has licensed sex offender registration tags one of those cameras or tagged by a camera, and they're in a park area, our officers will be notified. It's one of the other advantages of this type of information. NCIC warrant information. If you have someone who has warrants for their arrest for Class B or above, which is a regional investigation, or a TCIC, NCIC, which would be a felony investigation, that information is provided to the officer as these vehicles enter their jurisdictions. Last year, in talking with Chief Reyes from Cedar Hill, he pointed out that 2 of his homicide investigations were closed by the assistance of Flock. We were asked about that kind of information. Mansfield, in keeping information from January 1st to July 2024, they had 361 warrant confirmations. In other words, 361 warrants that were on a computer that got notification that they were in their city. 30 arrests came from these related notifications. They recovered or identified 117 stolen vehicles, recovered 10 missing persons who were on the computer as missing and at risk. Their own hot list information they place onto the computer system registered 847 hits. In other words, if they were looking for a stolen vehicle, if they were looking for a missing person, or if they had some type of information about someone who was using that car, their cameras and adjacent cameras these vehicles were recognized 847 times. So this is truly a force multiplier for investigative efforts. The information can only be accessed by licensed users, which are your law enforcement, can only be accessed by the police officers and or our dispatch personnel. And that's what it's designed to do, and we believe it's going to be an effective tool. So that's kind of what I got from some information and questions that I got before I got here, and then I have other information that I'm happy to talk to you about if it comes up.
I'm sure there'll be more questions. Tammy, anybody sign up to speak on this case? Okay, Ms. Healy, you want to come forward? Chief, stay close if you don't mind. Ms. Healy, you'll have 3 minutes, and then if you'll just state your name for the record and if you live in the city.
Hi, Lisa Healy. I live in the city limits. Thank you for my time tonight. Currently, these systems, there are no state or federal laws that apply to them. So that opens us up beyond a contract to abuse. While they state they'll only hold the data encrypted for 30 days, they can decide not to. It's a cloud-based system. It could be hacked. That data, while they say they won't share it, they could share it. It just opens up an opportunity for abuse, and that has concerns for me, especially when you're having the taxpayers foot the bill. My other concern is that there's current legislation going on regarding these systems, and in the event we invest this money and there's legislation that prohibits the use, then we're having to pull it out and we've spent this money. Again, maybe waiting is more prudent as we head into a legislative session. My other concern is the overreach of the federal government. You can see right now that the developer of Telegram was arrested in France because he refuses, absolutely refuses, to give away data. I don't think this flock will have that fortitude. Also, there have been abuses in Midlothian for overreach with the police department. I know, I've had personal experience, and I want to ensure that they don't have that ability to do that with the flock system. If you do decide to put this in Midlothian, I ask that you not have the taxpayers foot the bill. I don't want to live in a nanny state. A lot of people don't realize it's the slow creep that takes our freedoms away. This is a slow creep. It's not going to be all at once. Have we forgotten COVID? We lost a lot of freedoms during COVID, and this is another one right there knocking at our door. So at minimum, I ask that you not use taxpayer funds and you have a grant pay for this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Tammy, anybody else sign up to speak? Okay. Chief, you want to come back up? Council, questions, comments?
And this may be, Mike, you may have to jump in on this. How many cameras does the city of Midlothian currently operate in and around our community? Not flock cameras, just cameras.
Sure. Inside of facilities and outside, we have about 146 cameras.
How long do we retain the video feeds from those cameras?
We shoot for 120 days.
Okay.
We don't always hit that.
How many of those are pointed towards roadways or other publicly accessible areas, if you had to estimate? All the external ones?
We try to avoid that because it creates unnecessary traffic on the systems. We're usually trying to look at spaces on our properties. And so generally speaking, we will angle them down so we don't hit the roadway if we can do it. If we can't, we exempt that space from recording to try and avoid constant recording from cars going by and whatnot.
Okay.
So 40 to 50 maybe that are out and about in spaces, but again, we try and avoid roadways aside from just a few of them that we were testing for specifically roadways. So,
Thanks, sir.
yes, sir.
Anna?
Yeah, okay, so a couple of questions on the flock. As far as being involved with other entities, this is nationwide that other entities have it outside of Texas?
Yes,
And the reason I asked is because you mentioned like FBI.
yes, and so, well, they receive information from the FBI on missing persons and the exploited missing children information, so that's part of where they get the data. NCIC, TCIC, which is governed by the FBI, information that's provided to law enforcement and only accessible by law enforcement is the information where you get a lot of the personal information on warrants, criminal history, those kind of things that we use in our daily investigative information anyway. We would build through that. I've got a number here in this stack. I can get it for you, Anna, but I know in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we have one of the heaviest concentrations of flock cameras in the country, and they're in Nevada, they're all over the Southwest, and so it's a growing tool being used by law enforcement, intrastate and interstate. So it is a great, and I do understand the concerns, the issues with, there have been several discussions over the years. In fact, some of the first information we started looking at was back in the case law I saw started back in 2013. Recent case law as recently as 2021 is talking about whether or not this is a seizure issue or whether or not it is open record information provided to people who are in an open space. So as for now, the Supreme Court and other courts have continued to support the use of this information because it's not considered an illegal search and it is not being taken from private locations. It's in a public location. They're taking a still of the vehicle. They're not, all they're doing at the point of comparing a hot list information and that license plate or the description of that vehicle is information that an agency has put in. But the system itself does not run the car for any data. That's the investigator or the police officer's position. So none of that data is going to be stored in the cloud. The only thing stored in the cloud is a picture of the vehicle and the license plate. No what we would call PII, personal information, identifying information. That will not be stored as a part of these records.
So on that note, so I have a lot of questions. One of the articles that was sent to us, there was a quote in it talking about how this could lead to voting records and other privacy information. Do you have a comment on that?
I don't see how it could, because again, the information's encrypted. It's only a picture of a license plate, and I don't know, unless you take that, again, you have to break the encryption, you have to download the information, and then you have to go through a public source to get a registered owner. That does not mean the person who was registered to the vehicle was there. That's why it's an investigative tool.
And so are all of the cameras, at least in phase one that you're talking about, what you listed so far, are they all city property?
Yes,
So they're all public?
on public roadway.
Is there anything you're getting from these flock cameras that you would not get from a toll road, from our part? I mean, I get the link and everything, but like our other cameras that Mike was just talking about, the estimated 40 to 50 or
Yeah,
whatever.
in fact, we get a lot of information, particularly from the cameras in the parks. I mean, we've made several arrests on criminal mischiefs,
Yeah.
being able to identify individuals through those cameras. In fact, I think I brought it to your attention a few weeks ago. We had a burglary of a vehicle in the main park off of 14th Community Park, and we had a still of the individual who committed the crime. We just don't have the identifiers on the front or back of the vehicles. It's not designed to do that. So yes, we are getting information, and yes, we do use that part of our investigative process, and we've been successful to push down a lot of the criminal mischief that has been occurring in these parks. So, but we're only going to be placing these in public right-of-way and only taking photographs of vehicles that have no expectation of privacy, such as a garage or the private backyard or anything of that nature. This is not what that's designed to do.
Is there, so I'm hearing you say that it will obviously add to our own safety as far as like catching crimes in our own parks or whatever.
Absolutely.
But then obviously the linkage to all the other agencies. So
Force multiplier.
right. So literally a kidnapped child, they send it out to the system.
Yes.
It then tags that license plate. When that license plate enters one of our flock cameras, it's then notified.
Right. And I have several case studies that I can give to you, go through that murder suspect apprehended, missing person case study out of Bedford, murder solved in Sugar Land, Silver Alert, successfully solved in Argyle. Arlington PD has several shooting victims that were victims or cases that were identified. So the system is being used throughout the Metroplex and the state of Texas to solve crimes, and some of the most significant crimes we deal with.
Okay. The hard delete after 30 days, is that y'all doing that, or does the system do it on its own?
It's an automatic delete from the flock system.
So it's set up that way.
Correct.
And say I just absolutely did not trust you. Is there a way that you could leak this information out, or any other police information that you have on hand outside of the camera? And how does that process work?
It would be a very intentional act to retrieve the information and say I was looking for a particular license plate. Now I don't believe, and I don't know the system well enough yet or not, but I don't believe that I can do a search for all four-door white sedans that are this particular make, say Toyota. So it'll give me a listing of all of those. And at that point, I would have access to all the license plates. I could technically run all those license plates, get all that information, and print that somewhere. But that would be a violation of not only state law but federal law.
So there are laws in place that would.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's all I have. I'll let you know if something else comes up.
Al?
So, Chief, how many officers within the department would have access to this information?
Each one of our officers would have access to it.
Okay, so not only the criminal investigation unit, but any officer?
Yeah,
that-
see, any officer, say a patrol officer, entered the information from a stolen vehicle into our system, and it went to the flock. He or she could get a notification that that vehicle was seen on the camera at 14th in the something 100 block. So that would lead them to that vehicle if it was stationary or had it gone through. So it gets those kind of notifications. That's the kind of access they would have to it.
So there, because I talked to another city today that has one of these in place, and they only have 4 officers
Mhm.
that have access to this system. Have we considered limiting the access to also limit the liability or possibility of somebody going rogue and doing something?
Well, every
maybe
one
they
of the
shouldn't
officers
do?
we have, a council member has access to TCIC on the PCs they're using in their car. They can do more damage on those with that than they could this system, in my opinion.
Okay. Are there any, I'm sure there are some, but could you describe what are the checks and balances of ensuring that the information accessed is being used appropriately and not for any other purpose outside of an investigation?
Yeah, there's an audit trail that is created by every access point. Every time an officer logs into the system, that is a part of an access log. There's an access log administrator, which would likely be our Commander Hart, because he has more technical knowledge and really suited to this type of technology. But and with other audits that we are required to do through the Texas accreditation program, the national program, all of these systems will be audited on a regular basis. So it's the same way that we get audited by TCIC. Texas comes in, DPS comes in and does an audit of all of our systems within our telecommunications system. We have to keep a log of every time we access TCIC to run a criminal history. We have to show what we did with that criminal history. It's similar to that kind of situation. If we access that information, it has to be for a legitimate reason, and it'll be on a log.
Got it. That's all the questions I have. I've got some comments, but let us get to the
Wayne?
question.
So, I'm very much of a privacy rights kind of a guy, and as we are, being on public ground. I guess several of the questions have been answered that I had listed, but your current circumstances, which you stated a moment ago, even with the license plate, you don't know really who's driving that car, you just know who owns that car.
No, it only gives us another avenue of investigation.
Okay, so it just is a part of the investigative process, the supervision of the investigators, those that have access, is the checks and balances, following up on what Mr. Mormon said about if some of this is being accessed, who's checking
Correct.
the
Well,
accessors?
Yeah, and so with every investigation, as you recall, sorry, I got a
You
dry
okay?
throat. Yeah. I don't know what it is. Hopefully allergies.
Yeah, EMS coming.
Probably allergic to him.
You
It
saw
wasn't
that
that hard of a
picture.
question.
He can't wait to get his hands on me. In a loving way. So I'm not real sure what that was about, but y'all got me choked up. So you're gonna have to repeat your question.
Okay, I was just, yeah, you have, following up on what Mr. Moore was saying, you know, you have
It's just-
somebody that's accessing, who's checking the access? I mean, is there a regular routine?
Yeah.
Is that something the supervisor does on a weekly basis or, you know, from his direct reports?
Believe me, with our movement towards Texas accreditation and CALIA, the national accreditation, what we're learning and what I remember from my time in DeSoto was that audits is almost a quarterly issue on every system you use. If it's not annual, semi-annual. And so we will have to go back and validate that the officers and the investigators are using all of their access to this tech properly. From their investigative sergeants who are going in and looking at the case files and using those. Mansfield and Cedar Hill and other agencies have devised technology or really databases that are tracking the effectiveness of this. So one of the things we want to do over the next 2 years is be sure that it's worth the investment that we're making into the flock system to show you that these systems are being used properly and it is actually bringing down our crime rate and helping us be more effective. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on this anyway because it's a flagship. It's it's an investigative opportunity for us.
It sounds like that there's a lot of surrounding communities that are using this particular system. And we're about the only one that's not.
Well, I wouldn't say we're not the only ones. It's interesting that we are the only one in the 67-287 corridor in a contiguous with all of our neighbors from Dallas, Cedar Hill. I don't know if Duncanville is using it, so I'm not sure if DeSoto is using it, but I know Red Oak, Waxahachie, which creates a nice environment from our perspective when you look at the kind of roadways that we typically follow our suspects on. You know, they're either heading east or west on 287 or north or south on 67, so they're going to be captured by one of these routes.
So it's predominantly with the license plate number. That's the avenue for the possible investigation.
Correct.
There's
Well,
kidnapping or anything.
in what they call objective evidence, and so if you have, as we were talking about a while ago, if you have a four-door sedan that is a certain make, if it's a Toyota and say it has, or it's a Land Rover and it has a rack on the top, some type of deer guard on the front and all, if it's decked out, that information is going to be searchable. So the artificial intelligence, you're going to be able to put those parameters in there and it's going to find everything that models that. So that's why when you think about the time savings that an investigator would have when we're looking at those kind of suspect descriptions on a vehicle, it's going to be able to pull that together for the investigator to look at and then see what the commonalities are. But very seldom, unless someone gets out of a vehicle, there's no facial recognition. In my experience, it's very difficult to make head or tails of someone within a vehicle. So the likelihood that you could ID someone from inside a vehicle is very, very limited. Especially if you see these, most of these are high-speed photographs. They're moving at 60, 70 miles an hour and they're focused on these areas of the vehicle to capture that license plate.
Well,
So,
I'm old enough to see the integration of technology to a degree. My in-laws were FBI. They worked in the fingerprinting division, and it was just going through card files and looking up and comparing. And now that's all digital, and you got not only a countywide, statewide, and federal.
that's right.
And then the DNA and all of that. How can we assure the privacy of the citizenship and at the same time, keeping their freedoms, and then the criminal base,
Yeah.
they're kind of losing their freedoms. In my perspective, they.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to the type of information we're
Warm
trying to
call.
capture. We're really taking, again, it goes back, we're not identifying anyone in the car. We are identifying the car, the license plate, And unless there's a reason to look for a vehicle matching that description, we're never going to see it. And so it's going to be deleted every 30 days. And, you know, the crazy number, there are over 1 billion photos a day in this system. So, I mean, you really, truly, unless you're looking for a particular type of car, you have a partial license plate, the likelihood of finding something in 1 billion data points is going to be really difficult.
You have to really be doing
Yeah,
the
you-
research
yeah.
and putting in, looking for a
You know,
specific.
and I understand, you know, we're all gonna, you're gonna push up against the wall and say, but is there a chance that it could be abused? And yes, we've arrested people who abuse the systems we have in place today. And so that is the type of thing that we have to do an internal audit and make sure that we're doing our job well and making sure that we're watching internally to make sure those abuses don't occur. That anytime, council member, you know as well as I know, is if there's a person present, a human present, there's a chance that there's a mistake or someone's going to take advantage of a situation.
I just have two more questions and wrap it into one, kind of two-tiered, but it has to do with the cost. It's the pragmatic side of it,
Yes.
the cost to the taxpayer, the cost to the city. That question was brought up a moment ago. As well as, you know, not only if we have to buy the cameras, have to buy the capital part, and then I'm assuming, not knowing any more technology than I know, is there's some subscription part of it for the software aspect of it that would have to be paid on an annual basis. What are those costs?
Primarily, it's a subscription. And you can, there are multiple factors that you could place into it. They can use a camera that we own. They can place the software on that. Obviously, they don't warrant the quality of picture based on that. And there are advances in camera technology all the time, and that could even be cheaper. I believe Fort Worth is one of those agencies that they build their own cameras and they just plate the technology on there. So all they have is the subscription. But so the infrastructure is a pole. There is a charge for the pole. There's a charge for the installation. And it is a $3,000 a year subscription for that technology moving forward.
And that could be tied in with the cameras we currently have. Maybe some additional that
Correct.
we would purchase or that they would provide, and then they belong to them.
Correct.
If we ever pull the plug,
Yeah, if we sever the
they come and
contract,
pull the
if it's our
cameras.
camera, we just delete the software. If it's their camera, they pull the system. So
And what kind of notice do we need to have? I'm sorry, I said I had two more questions, but it keeps coming more. What kind of notice do we have of being able, if we decide we want to pull the plug, if we did go into this?
I would
Is
think
it
it's
like
a
a
general
60 day?
90
Did I
days,
see
something
something
like
60
that,
day in the
but-
material?
I mean, if we decide to stop using it, we're obviously just going to stop it, and then
And then give them notice that,
yeah, and come pick up their equipment. So, and you know, the first 2 years of this, you know, we are obviously Midlothian Police Department's been a part of a HIDA as for the last since 2008, 2009. We've hosted a HIDA, which is High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Task Force, and a part of that group. As the investigations have gone through and very successfully over the years, we have used the forfeiture funds that we are allocated based on investigative results for this type of effort to determine if a tech is worth our investment. So that's where the funds are coming. It's coming from forfeiture account, not tax funds. Those were awarded to the police department based on those investigations, and this is the kind of thing they were designed for. Tools, equipment, technology that advances law enforcement. And so the first 2 years are covered by that. If we decide, if you decide that it's worth investing, then we can look at how that tax or that cost is allocated. Cedar Hill, over half of their cameras are paid for by a PID or HOAs. And so they don't have that many that the city themselves are paying for. So there are other ways to have these allocated. So
Ross? Mike?
I just wanted to kind of mention, and I do appreciate all the council members' comments. I did want to mention to the general public, but first of all, Chief Smith, I do appreciate you bringing this before us. It is outstanding, an outstanding product. As far as the positives that this provides, they're abundant. I can foresee it saving officers overtime, giving real-time data, helping with Amber Alerts, child trafficking, likely having fugitives linked to license plates that can be picked up on, making our entire safe environment that we all desire so deeply and spend a large amount of our tax dollars for emergency safety and services, benefiting it that much more. And saying that, as I sat and I thought about this weekend, and so I want to state for the public how I feel about this, and this is after listening to all these questions. Where there's so many good ideas to do this, which seem overwhelming, it seems like it's the way the world's going. As I watch the way wars fought now, it's all done from a drone. They watch people, they track people, they don't have to touch people anymore. Where do I feel like our society is headed? That's what the part that scares me. And other part that scares me is from an undesired momentum that moves forward in more of a controlling manner, even with our own, within our own city ordinance basis, code systems. All of that works in a forward momentum that used to be under complaint basis only, to where now even the way we handle our code variances and code problems, we investigate in a different manner. I guess what concerns me about this the most is I feel as though we're headed to a point of living in a state in the latter part of my lifetime, which I have just a few years left. We already know that we're tracked by our cell phones. I've studied and been told that there are already computer algorithm systems which can tie what we touch on Facebook or do on the internet or what have you, that the CIA or literally whatever governmental federal system can decide what makes us tick. And I believe there's only one thing left to making that complete, and that is to be able to have a literal video system attached to that in another 10 to 20 years, to where no matter what we do, we're living in real time all the time from the time we walk out our front door. Once we pass onto our sidewalk, we will be tracked real time. And no matter what you said you did, let us just show you the video of who you are as we see it. So I guess what I would say in saying all that, where everything that's been mentioned makes sense from an application standpoint and money saving standpoint, there's a side of me which desires to not be the person that says yes to the allowance, to know that I got into the latter part of I'll give you the quickest example and then I'll be done. I remember about 10 years ago watching over in Europe on TV that literally people walking down the street, and as they would turn the corner, they had a camera on every single thing they did. And I thought, wow, would you look at that? They know everywhere they turn and everything they do. That's sad. And then I consider, as I thought about this over the weekend, I'm considering being a part of that for good reason.
Sure.
But I don't know that I can bring myself to take the first step and decide for the citizens that's the life that I want to live in my city. So I don't know that I'm going to be able to support this for those reasons. It has nothing to do with you. I just wanted to state for the record why I view this the way that I do. And I appreciate you bringing it forward. I think it's a great idea.
Ross?
Yeah, I did have a couple more questions. So it talks about there's an optional transparency portal. What does that provide, and what transparency does that allow for the residents of the community?
Well, you would ask for the one that I'm not really up on. What I get from the provision that Flock has given to us is that there is, one, the reporting system that identifies the number of hits, what category they're in, and how they're being used. It looks like an interface that could be accessed through the internet, and I'm not sure if that's off of our webpage or if that's something that is produced as a part of a report. But I haven't got that far in, well, we just haven't gotten that far yet. Because all I've got is what you've got is that just a brief description of what's available in terms of making sure that that it's not abused.
Okay.
But it is, if you see that interface there, it looks like what it's showing is the number of hits per camera, which camera. In fact, the detail that I've got from Mansfield, they have 20 cameras that they gave me information on, and it shows how many hits and what those hits actually showed, whether it was a stolen license plate, whether it was a warrant, or whether or not it was a stolen vehicle. And all of that is available. Would be probably what you would see if you looked on that portal. That we would be able to provide. My assumption is that that's something that would be provided through our website.
So, you said Commander Harp will most likely be the audit administrator for the system. How often, and do you have procedures established for how often he would perform an audit of that? What types of red flags he would be looking for? Is there a tool provided by the vendor that would, flag what it deemed to be potential inappropriate searches? I ask this because my youngest son, is in 7th grade. He has a cell phone. It's something they call Gab Wireless, and there's a parental app that it doesn't show me every text message he sends and receives, but if it sees one that it thinks might contain inappropriate information, it alerts me and flags that so I can go take a quick look to see what's going on there. And if they can do that for $40 a month on my kid's cell phone, I would certainly hope this system has a similar functionality built into it, so it's a proactive monitoring, not a reactive monitoring of the audit.
Correct. Well, the way I understand the system works, so all of our users would receive information that if there was a hit, they would be logged into a portal, much like what we're looking at in the transparent. And it would show that camera 20 has a hit for a stolen vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
That's one aspect of
And
its
I'm not
usage.
worried about that side
Yeah,
of it, right? 'Cause
the other
those
side
are-
for the investigator who would pull that information would be the same type of log. Again, it has a log every time it's accessed, and so the parameters for those audits are within the agency's purview. And I think the statement was there are no laws. Ms. Healy is correct. I couldn't find a law that has an oversight over these things. There is what's called best practice from the Texas Police Chiefs, from the ICP, the International Chiefs of Police, from other organizations that place these kind of audits. My assumption is that we would do an audit every 30 days to make sure the data is being destroyed the way it should be. And I don't know what that looks like, because frankly, we haven't used the system.
And just to be clear, I'm less concerned about the data, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's data. I mean, there are so many databases in our world. Between the Amazon Web Service, Google, our CIA, FBI, NSA, whomever. I mean, there's databases out there containing, like you said, billions of data points. Mm-hmm. The rubber meets the road in the interface that allows you to search, sort, and extrapolate data from those databases in an actionable manner. So what I'm talking about is, let's say, we have the worst case scenario of we do have a rogue acting officer who, gets cut off when they're off duty by somebody in a white 4-door Toyota Corolla that has a peace, love, and happiness bumper sticker on the back of it. And so when they get on shift, they go, you know what, let me just see where that guy's at, right?
Oddly specific,
And
Ross.
the next day, they didn't get a hit, so the next day they check it again. The next day they check it again. The next day they check it again. That's something that this system should automatically go, wait a minute, why did they just search this 5 days in a row what's going on here, somebody may need to take a look at what's going on. And that's something that you get in a proactive safety net environment that you don't get in a reactive audit environment where you've got one human being having to sort through, you know, a lot of data points. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably have very similar overlays on top of the overall IT network we have here, that if something is occurring that doesn't normally occur or is in a pattern that dictates that it could be a bad actor, it's going to alert you. And so I know these functionalities exist in software. I just don't see anywhere in the material here. You know, I think audit logs are great.
Mm-hmm.
If you really, really, you know, maybe if you're a CPA, no offense to any of those in the room, and want to pour through all of that data, you know, to find the needle in the needle stack. But for the rest of us, we want a little flashy light that says, hey, look over here real quick.
Well, you know, much like the call we got last weekend, we have the system that MISD uses, and it flags, it has an algorithm, it has a geofence, and looks for keywords that pop up on social media. You know, I don't know what that system cost. I don't know if, generally speaking, I know y'all hate to hear this, but we are dealing with police officers that go through an extensive background. And I know that there are examples out there you could pull from all over every 50 state, 50 of our states, where someone has abused the system. But at some point, I don't know that this system is that sophisticated where if someone repeatedly puts in the same one, it's going to give us that audit alert. I haven't seen that in the data either. My years of service, we have done fairly well in the way that we do our audits and making sure that they're really and truly, when you start looking at the, you know, what are you going to be using this information for? There's going to be an outflow of that energy. So if we have someone who is targeting someone, my guess is the target, they're going to do something that's going to bring attention to themselves. It's just like the selling of information off of TCIC. At some point, there's going to be a criminal episode that's going to bring attention to that. And I don't know that our systems are designed that way. Well, we've had this conversation before about other systems.
But they're reactive controls versus proactive controls.
I understand, and that's the way that law enforcement and the systems we use, TCIC, NCIC, again, we have a log for criminal histories. It doesn't, if the officer's running a name and number on a repeated basis, that's going to be logged. I don't know that Austin or the FBI is going to get a notice that they've run it 10 or 15 times.
I have no problem with the concept of the system, right? But any system that's robust enough to sort through 80-mile-per-hour license plate, let's be fair, it's not 60 or 70, it's going to be 80 going down 67, should also have the ability to alert, you know, to watch the watchers, so to speak. And it's not because we're saying we have bad cops on our force or that we don't trust you or we don't trust anybody else.
I understand.
But I think that's the piece for me, and to me it's a design flaw in the software system itself, is the power to have at your fingertips that this will give to our officers. I think is an amazing tool for police work. What I want to know is if we do happen to have a rogue actor or somebody who is maybe their moral compass doesn't work due north and it just hasn't been identified yet, that you or Commander Harp or somebody is getting alerted, hey, we're sniffing out what may be inappropriate activity. Just like as the cars go by, hey, we're sniffing out something that may be a felon, but it may just be a car related. It should go both ways, and that's for me where it's fair.
I got you. But it's a comparative database. It's not, I don't think the algorithm, there's not an algorithm looking at the investigative side. Maybe something it should look at. Maybe it's not. It's buried in the data and we haven't found it. But I do know, again, you look at the way they design it to protect your information, it is a very intentional effort to get into the system, pull a license plate number, and dig into that information. Now you're violating multiple federal laws to get license plate information off of a federal and state database. These are felony grade offenses. This is not something, and then if it is occurring and it's not caught, then the need center can lose its license to operate. So there are very high stakes there, and that's why it's designed. That's why DPS comes in and does their audits. And that's why we do the logs. And it's, as I said, you know, I wish that I could tell you that all of law enforcement had that kind of high speed, just like your cell phone, but they're not spending $1 billion on making these systems. At least, you know, not everything that I've seen. So we're not spending $1 billion on it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's try to wrap this up. I know Alan had some comments. Before anyone makes a motion, I'd like to make a comment because I did forget to mention one thing. But Alan.
Yeah, so I don't have any more questions for Chief, but I do have 3 primary concerns around this that I just want to share with the council and just in the public setting. First of all, I have no doubt at all that this system will be effective and catch bad guys and criminals. I believe in its intended functionality. To echo what Councilman Rogers shared, I believe that it would be very efficient and effective with its with the purpose that was shared today. But as I thought through this, prayed through it, because this is a new thing for our community, and just tried to assess what I felt about this particular agenda item. What came to mind is in 2020, when I was standing right at that podium there, and the council that was in place at the time was having to consider, which fortunately I believe they landed on the right side of, whether or not to dictate and control whether or not our citizens would go to work or not, what their movement would be, and whether or not they should stay at home. That same day, in tears, I was at the Ellis County Courthouse for a commissioner's court meeting where they did not land in the same place, and I begged them to not issue that stay-at-home order. If in a year before that, if I would have told somebody that I was doing that or that was taking place and that vote was going to happen, they would have put me in a tinfoil hat and said, that's crazy. That'll never be a thing in America. That happened. It was issued from the top down from our governor under emergency orders. My primary concern at the top of the list is not whether Chief Smith and his team will be effective with this. I'm very confident in that. My concern would be in the event there is any kind of emergency, top down from the state, and they say, hey, we're going to restrict movement, just like they did. And they said, hey, you've got a camera system that'll tell us where people are going and if they're out, and we can find out if they're going where they're supposed to be going. I don't want to be a part of setting up a potential avenue for those kind of overreaches. Although I don't believe this council would institute anything like that, I have concerns from top down. Secondly, I truly believe 99.9999% of officers in our state, and especially right here in our local community, are honorable, they are trustworthy, they are committed to their duty and in an honorable way. But I do know that people are people, and sometimes individuals go off the rails, or they begin to do things that aren't honorable, and it does take time and fairness to identify that. It's not, none of us see everything, none of us are omnipotent, and it takes time to find that. I have 2 daughters, one of which in 2 years will be getting her license. It's kind of crazy to say, but when she's out and about in town, I have concerns that, if somebody did go off the rails, if they, decided, hey, I want to, find out where she goes every day, I want to run into her, I want to, pursue her, or, whatever the case may be, the fact that information could be in the worst, alter universe could be utilized for a destructive behavior. Me having daughters, that concerns me. The last thing I'll share is we talk a lot about the small town feel of our community and preserving that, not wanting to be some of these more metropolitan areas. I think in these major metropolitan areas, it makes a whole lot of sense. There's a lot of crime. There's a lot of challenges that these departments are faced with every day. Not that ours are not, but obviously it's at a much greater scale in more of these metropolitan areas. Even some of these cities mentioned. You know, when I think about Mansfield, I think about Cedar Hill. I don't think of those cities as a Midlothian. I see Midlothian as something we need to preserve that small town feel within, and I feel like putting up cameras, even with the best of intentions, does not allow us to preserve that feel. I've got one comment I want to read into the record that was sent to council. It was by the former Mayor Richard Reno, and it says, "I'd advise the council to be slow to act and delay this decision until the community has had the chance to fully discuss and consider. Benjamin Franklin said, to trade liberty for safety you would have neither. I fully support the police, which hopefully my past record indicates. However, while we are not to make the police force's job harder than necessary, the police are here for our safety. We're not here to make their job easier by the passing of this ordinance. I favor limited government. Once steps are taken over time, the intrusion to our lives will only become more so. At this time, I don't see the necessity for this ordinance. I'm not ready to abrogate this level of government involvement in our private lives." Signed, Richard Reno. I have a suggestion I'd like to propose to council, and it's twofold, or a couple of alternatives. One would be to take this budget, and if the department needs additional help to catch more bad guys, take this $209,000 and invest it in additional personnel or other means by which to support and to come alongside to help our department. If the council so chooses to move forward with this particular technology, or the majority of council, I would suggest putting together some sort of subcommittee that can meet with representatives from the department to collectively ensure the accountability and the checks and balance system that have been discussed tonight, so that we can ensure that some of those proactive measures are in place as we roll out this technology, if the council decides to move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Final comments? Anna, I see your lights on.
I just disagree with a lot of comments being made, and so this is not one in particular person. Just I think the day that any of us accepted to have a smartphone, there is far more going on than this dinky license plate reading system. The idea that it's like going to encroach into our lives, I think, is nothing compared to what these smartphones are doing in our hands. It's nothing more than us driving on toll roads, and every one of us, whether we say we want our freedom in this or not, I can almost guarantee you none of us are avoiding tolls or avoiding smartphones. I also have kids. The idea that my child could be abducted and that I was part of not having a system like this because it personally took some sort of freedom away, and instead I wasn't going to collaborate with our surrounding entities because of whatever reason, I would feel bad about that. I don't have anything to hide. I honestly don't care if someone knows that I'm driving into a parking lot somewhere. You can search my computer, you can search my phone, you can search my car. I could care less because I'm not doing anything wrong. So I think this is a fantastic system. I would love to make the police department's job easier, even though that's something that was read that we're not here to make their job easier. I would love to make their job easier, because I think safety in our town is number one. And if we can collaborate with the many, many, many organizations and entities around us that are doing the exact same thing already, then I would be proud to be a part of that.
Okay.
Mayor, may I add one piece of information? One of the reasons that we brought this to you was one of, I think, the operational responsibilities I have is to keep an eye on the criminal activity in our community. I've lived on Mountain Peak since 1995 when there was barely a car come down 875. You could lay out on that roadway for an hour or two and not worry about what happens. I lived through a growth model in DeSoto where we went from 19,000 to nearly 60,000. We went from 32 officers to nearly 85 officers, very similar situations. What I've seen is the growth of our community exponentially affected by the highways. Not only, and we can talk about small town. Today I was in Kim and Jenny's having lunch with my cousin who's lived here since his birth, and my father-in-law walks in and has lunch with us. And so I love small town, but I want you to understand that in 2022 and 2023, we had 310 thefts. We're projected to have 633 this year with a total loss of nearly $4 million. We are not winning this battle. We're en route to double our vehicle thefts. Burglary vehicles are 1.5 times what they were in 2003. And our aggravated robberies are inching up as well. And that's people coming against other people with weapons, much like they did down at the Chase Bank, where we lost $300,000 to 3 pistol-carrying young men who drove right by our police department on the way north. And we have no idea what the license plate on that vehicle was. The reason why we're here is because that kind of activity can be effectively investigated and solved using this technology. I love my freedom just as much as anybody else does. I'm a very private person. I have fences around my property for a reason. My wife and I were victims of crime when my son was 2, and he lives with that today. So I understand very intimately what you're talking about. I just want council to know that we will do our best to protect the freedoms of this community, but this is a tool that will exponentially make our investigative staff more effective.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. I'll make a quick comment and then we'll push this to a vote. I would say that I understand the controversial nature of this. I understand and I value all the comments that were made. All of us, I believe all of us ran on the idea of making our community as safe as we possibly can make it. And here we have the Chief of Police in a department that has been under scrutiny in the past for not being able to solve particularly high-profile crimes. And with software such as this, or of this nature, might have aided in supporting that. I know that although I don't want to write a blank check for it, I want to be able to lay my head on the pillow at night knowing that I did everything that I could do to equip our community to be as safe as it possibly can. So I know I might be in the minority on that particular comment, but I believe that there's value in fully equipping our department, specifically our chief, whenever they're requesting for certain tools. So with that, Ross, I see your light on, but I do want to get to a motion relatively quickly.
That's right, Matt.
Okay. Make a motion.
Yeah, incorporating comments and feedback that we've heard. I mean, my main concern with this is the accountability of the watchers, right? Who's watching the watchers? I really like Councilman Mormon's recommendation of, having a small subcommittee of council that participates in the oversight and the audit process, at least until we can determine if there's some more automated version that would, flag inappropriate use of the system. I agree with Councilwoman Hammonds that the expectation of privacy in the public sphere died when the iPhone was born. Everybody's got a camera. Everybody's got a listening device in their hand. You cannot walk anywhere in this world without the expectation that somebody is videoing you at any point in time. So for those reasons, I'll make a motion to approve with the caveat that there be a council subcommittee on oversight that meets regularly with Commander Hart and the chief to ensure that we are using the system in a manner that is not detrimental.
A motion to approve with the caveat of the subcommittee.
Which those parameters will be discussed at a later date by this council.
Yes, I'll bring that before the council for discussion on who can serve on that, or I think I have the ability to as the mayor to assign a subcommittee. So the motion is to approve with the subcommittee from Councilman Weaver, seconded by Councilwoman Hammonds. Please vote. And the item passes 4-2.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, appreciate you. I'm here for a minute.